Warning. This podcast may be offensive to you if you are easily offended. If you are easily offended, please leave this video. This video is just some friends discussing things and may contain some humor or topics you don't like. It may also have opinions you don't agree with. So please, leave the negativity at the door.
What is going on, everybody? I'd like to welcome you guys to Red's World. So first and foremost, today I got a very special guest, someone that was great to me, even when I was not the best person. And just, someone who is a great mentor to many other people. If you don't know him, it's unfortunate. If you do know him, you probably know him as Mr. A or Mr. Aldridge. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, how's it going?
So we're just going to talk about, some questions that I kind of curated for him, and hopefully you guys are interested in the interaction. So to start us off, number one, I just kind of I don't want to be too gushy, but in the world that we live in today, it's very hard to find positive people. And I was very immature when I was younger, and it's crazy to me looking back how much I've grown and stuff. But at that time, there were only a few people who were really still genuinely good people. And I guess the first question that I have for you is, how do you find it within yourself to still be nice to people who are kind of not the greatest people?
Are you talking about freshmen, Josh?
I mean, pretty much the good majority until, they mature and get older, go through life,
Well, I mean, there are people that you don't want to deal with in adult life too.
Absolutely.
Not just in high school. It's like, oh, those freshmen or that kid that won't sit down. You'll go to out to eat, and there'll be that person arguing with their server.
Right.
You're just like, is the world gonna end because your steak wasn't medium rare? It was rare.
Right.
And part of it is when dealing with students, specifically students that take you there, you have to realize that, and I've always felt this because this is how I was growing up, is none of the teachers knew what was happening at my house.
Right.
So the 20 hours that they didn't see me, they had no idea what I was bringing to that school. And some teachers realized that, and they were like, okay, something is going on outside of school. Something is going on out, in his life. So, maybe just kind of give him some space, give him some room. Or maybe this is a good time to hold him to task. It's like, hey, life is going to be tough. You're going to have adversity. You can't just shut down and quit,
right.
Which is a lot of kids. That's their thing. Just boom, just shut down. So maybe at that time, you need to be challenged. But I always made sure that I treated every day like it was just 24 hours. And maybe tomorrow will be better. I have students that, I teach in inner city Cleveland, and I love my kids. My kids are great. But I have some kids that, I don't know what's happening outside, but I know it's something that I wouldn't want to happen to me. So new day starts, and a student that has, I've written up the day before, or I've escorted to security, or I've had to break up a fight. Student comes back and they expect you to hold a grudge. They expect you to carry that around.
And a lot of teachers do.
Yeah. I mean, we're human as well. And there are some students that have burned me several times, and I kind of do hold a little bit. I wouldn't say a grudge. I'm just forewarned.
Right.
But I'm constantly looking for that time they do something right. That's the big thing. Don't look for it wrong. They'll give you plenty of wrong.
It's really interesting to hear this perspective, because basically what you're saying is treat them like people.
Oh yeah.
I think that's one of the hardest things that a lot of people have with children, and same vice versa, is that when someone is a child, you kind of look at them like, you're stupid. You're basically not even aware human being. And then when people get older, there's this expectation that they're going to be an aware person. It's like a lot of
Yeah.
people are still not all the way
It's-
there, including ourselves at times. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. I mean, and I'm a huge proponent of giving somebody third, fourth, and fifth chances. You know, not adults as much. I don't give adults that many chances to
No.
burn. But you know, a student
Well, you're
steals
also
something.
in a forced environment. You kind of have to see them. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, and every teacher in Ohio. Sorry, I've got students coming into my class, and I don't know why because they need to be out of my class. Thank you. Bye. No, I don't have a cup. Thanks. So, two of my best students. The funny thing about students that like you because you have any teacher that says they don't have students that are, you know, quote unquote favorites is lying to you.
absolutely.
The trick is don't treat favorites like favorites. You treat them absolutely worse than, and you just like constantly hold them to task, constantly, you know, are on them about stuff.
Right.
And that tends to endear them more because they know that you're doing it from, you know, I don't ever pick on a student. That I, having been picked on myself as a student, that's just absolutely unconscionable. But I will needle a student, but never a student that's in a weak position. Never a student
Right.
that can't.
Someone that could take it.
Exactly. You know, it's any idiot can pick on the weak, pick on the strong, you know?
Well, and the good thing is when you're strong enough to handle that at times, that makes you even better of a person. But if you're weak and it breaks you, then that completely just, you know, it's a house of cards and you're just pulling the card, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's so much easier to do the right thing rather than fix something broken. And if you cause something to be broken as a teacher, you, that's a huge, I mean, a lot of, I'm not saying that teachers are equivalent to doctors or nurses or
I would
therapists.
argue more important, to be honest,
You know, I
because you got to think the doctors would not exist without a teacher.
that's true. I always think it's hilarious when people say, you know, that, you know, if those that can do, those that can't teach.
Mhm.
I just find that, I mean, I've seen so many first year teachers that they only became first year teachers. That was it. They were done. They were finished.
And that was one of the questions I was going to ask you too. But before I segue into that, I wanted to ask, for one, do you have any mentors that were like significant enough to want to like as essentially like shout out like somebody like, oh, my grandma was.
Well, a lot of the people that galvanized me to teach like I teach did so not out of a positive interaction, but out of a negative interaction.
Taught you what not to do.
Yeah. So I'll never refuse a student to go to the bathroom. I might give you all kinds of grief. You might earn detention. I might take your phone, but you're still
stop it. You don't punish students.
No. That's my hot button issue. Every teacher's got that one thing that's their line in the sand. Mine is phones, because
Okay. And that's
not,
changed a lot since I was younger as well. And phones are extremely relevant now.
I absolutely get it. I get the connection you have with social media and a phone.
Absolutely.
Friends, you're constantly feeling like you're in this bubble of connection. But I can't compete with YouTube.
No,
I don't try to. I can't compete with TikTok.
it's amazing stuff. It's just,
It is.
you got to develop an attention span and respect.
Yeah. And so I there are different ways to handle that. One of them is you draw a line in the sand and it's just like you unleash the nuclear option anytime.
No phones.
And that does not work.
Everyone's just going to hate you.
Yeah, and nobody
respects someone they hate.
Yeah, you can't just go off like that. So I said, all right. I explained to them in the beginning of class, I can't compete with that. I'm not going to compete with that. Right. But if you can, you know, I don't think any of you are day traders or heart surgeons, so you're really not that important. And let's let's face it, most of you don't drive. So if you got news that is an emergency nature, it's going to come through the school and they're going to come pick you out of class. No problem. Right. So for 40 minutes, can you just disconnect? And in return, I provide a fast charger. So I've got like 3 of these big banks of phone chargers that charge
you. Make it worse for the other teachers.
and well, yeah, maybe, but I make it accessible. I make it so it's like, hey, you're going to have your phone away in my class.
That's a very smart compromise, because you're letting them charge their phone, which they want to do, but they're not going to be on it because it's charging. That's very witty of you. I see what you did there.
And it was absolutely 100% planned. There was because
you're accepting the phone when you do that. You're not saying no phone. You're naturally allowing them to put their phone down so to charge.
Exactly. It's like a magician's choice. It's like,
that's very smart. And that's actually a very good analogy for how you teach. Actually, you're very, so, okay. Most kids don't want to be at school. Let's just clear that.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure most teachers don't necessarily want to be at school, but in a weird way, it's something that you love. So with that being said, there's a compromise that has to be there. Of course, as a teacher, it'd be great for every student to just be this diamond in the rough, absorbs every single thing you teach. But the reality is that's not most kids. And most kids don't care that much about that education at that level. So what you do is you find a compromise that's like for me, I wasn't the greatest student. I was terrible actually at school. And it wasn't that I was dumb. It was that I was uninterested. It's like an ADHD, just like, this isn't it for me.
Squirrel.
But there were even times where, if I felt like I was going to get in trouble or something, or I was doing something stupid, I would come to your class, even when I was supposed to have other classes. And you were kind of like, I would rather him sit here, even though I'm probably not supposed to do this, I'd rather him sit here than going and doing something stupid. And that was a way that helped mentor me to realize, don't step on his toes, because you had gotten mad at me a couple times. There was a time in DC. I don't know if you remember the DC trip at all.
The DC trip.
But there was actually something funny that happened in DC as well. I remember me and Gabe were accused of talking in the cathedral. I swear to God, we were not talking. I don't know who said we were talking. We were bad the whole time, but that one time we weren't actually doing anything. I was like, what happened? I wasn't talking. And of course I was, problem with authority at that time and everything. But no, just the amount of compromise and realization that, look, if you just behave yourself, don't make a nuisance, ruin the class, then I'll give you a passing grade. I want you to still participate to some level, but you're not, the expectation isn't, you got to be the perfect student. I need you to, focus on everything I'm saying. And I think that's a huge reason why it feels accepting. It's like you're accepting that student as how they are versus telling them to change.
Yeah, I tend to not go for high stakes lectures or high stakes where, it's like, you've got to pay laser focused attention to this for the next, 30 minutes. And then I'm going to assess how well I taught you. I'm not assessing how well I taught you.
No,
I'm assessing whether you were in a receptive mode at that point.
Exactly.
And the simple fact is you're never going to get 100% of your students doing 100% of what you want at the same time. So your best bet, in my humble opinion, is to, give them it one way, present it like, hey, I've got there's this paper about this. I'd like you to read the paper, and then talk about it, and then forget it, and then come back to it. And then when you come back to it, find out, okay, this student got it. This student got it. I've got a pocket of resistance over here. How am I going to handle that pocket of resistance? And I mean, I'm A-okay failing. I'm A-okay failing, and I've failed wonderfully in my classroom. And I encourage my students to fail as well. Try and fail. Because we're so afraid of trying. Of somebody.
That's the only way to learn is failure.
Absolutely.
It's literally the only way to learn.
You don't want to do that too much if you're a brain surgeon, pilot.
Yeah, but I
You know,
mean,
but
those situations.
they do. There are. I think there was one job opening for a perfect person, and that job got filled. You know, we're all just schlubbing it along as best we can.
Absolutely.
And I don't know if I'm going to get grief from my fellow teachers about this. It's not all of them, but I see some teachers that are so into what they do, they can't understand why someone else is not. And they don't understand why can't you get the concept of the Pythagorean theorem?
Well, and that also could be a trauma response. They may have been raised some way that has an impact on them as an adult, you know.
Yeah, and so, but these teachers, they just they will pigeonhole a student into, this is, combative, anti-authoritarian student, and we always have our finger on them to make sure that
control the thing that you can't control.
Exactly, you can't control. You can't control.
If they don't want to learn, you're not going to teach them. And you should know that as an adult anyway. And that's, no offense to anybody, but if you are an adult and you're looking around going, let me help somebody, and they don't want to help themselves, and you think that you're going to be able to continue to help them and they don't want to help themselves, maybe you haven't tried to help that many people, or maybe it's worked out for you every single time, but unfortunately you cannot help everybody. You can't.
No. And I also get some pushback when I go to I go to another teacher and they say, well, how's this student doing in your class? And I go, they're failing. Well, what intervention strategies have you? I said, I
tolerate them.
Right. And at a certain point, a student just realizes, and the teacher realizes, that this is not going to have a positive outcome. So what can we do to make it so you're not a negative impact on my class?
Right.
So I have a student that comes into my class. I write him a referral slip to go to the planning center, and he goes to the planning center and he works on last year's stuff that he failed the entire year. The only class he did not fail was my drumline class.
So it's almost like credit recovery.
Exactly. So he doesn't want to be in band. They stuck him in band. He wanted to be in drumline. And I'll be honest, he was not good in drumline. But I don't expect you to be good. I don't know if Josh said this, I'm a music teacher, but I don't expect a student to come into my music class and be a good musician.
I wouldn't say you're a music teacher, though. I know that's like the subject they stick you with,
my official title.
You're a musician and a teacher.
I'll buy that.
I don't think, and that's another thing that I was going to say, is I don't think it's fair, because look, when we went to DC, were you teaching us music? No, you were a chaperone. You were whatever you want to call it, and that's why it's important. A big reason why I would believe that you were sent on that trip was because you can handle that. Not only the moving around and the planning and the chaos, but also you have the tolerance levels, you have the intelligence levels. And I'm not saying this to disrespect any of the other teachers, but it's kind of the same thing that you said about students flipped. You have to look at these teachers and go, what's going on in their personal lives? You know what I mean? And that's the reality of the situation. And it's humbling to be able to self-reflect and go, I'm not mad at these teachers for not. I had some good teachers, but only a handful. And that's, again, not every teacher is going to be able to have an impact on me, because maybe we're just on different frequencies. Doesn't mean they're a bad person. There's somebody that's like a super, like you said, hey, I want to get this person into the Pythagorean theorem. Well, I might not care about that, but the kid that does may love that teacher. You know what I mean? So it's just exactly. So it's just important that we understand is, things can vary and differ, but just as people in general, you're one of the few people in my entire life, I'm almost 30 now, who has actually displayed empathy, I guess, and compromise. And that's, I don't know if you notice this or if you feel this, or, you know, I don't know if you understand how you mentor somebody or if you even feel like you mentored them. You might have felt like, to me, like, this kid's crazy. I'm just trying to compromise with him. But to
No,
me, that literally changed my life. I started going, I want to be like Mr. A. He's smart. He knows a lot of stuff. You could talk to him about anything. He's also very calm. He doesn't get mad and stuff unless you do something that is, you know, pretty stupid. And then it's kind of like a scolding. It's not like, I'm going to kill you or something. That was something to me that I was not necessarily, I don't want to say I wasn't receiving at home, because my parents did the best they could in their situations and what they knew. But from a different kind of frequency, you kind of hit those things for me. So,
Mhm.
like I said, I don't know if you could tell when somebody is like, man, you helped me, and how much that actually means. Cause like, to you, you might think like, oh, this is just a, you know, thanks for being a teacher. But it's like, no, like, you've probably impacted more people's lives than you could ever even imagine.
I I I try to. I honestly, um, I think you did say it right. And the reason that oh no, I uh I can't stand people that are, uh, and this is kind of telling of me, somebody that's so, trying to reach students. I have trouble with people that are arrogant.
Yeah.
And I will constantly self-deprecate, say, "Oh no, I'm just a teacher." In my heart of hearts, I know I'm good at reaching students. I'm good at finding that one nugget of who they really are, who they really could be, and kind of teasing that out. And I absolutely 100% will trick students into being good.
A
I
lot
will.
of that, a lot of that is also, from my opinion, and I think this is why we connected, it's a trauma response to sporadic behavior as a child. Somebody is, maybe you got to read them more often. You got to read the room. Like, can I say this, or am I going to get yelled at, or am I going to get whooped or something like that? And I don't know if you had anything like that in your life, but I think that those things actually create a tendency to overanalyze everything, which
Yeah,
actually becomes good when you're reading people, but it can be bad in a lot of other places.
it's like, oh, they're really great at, establishing their safe zones and exits, and areas of concern in a room, but they can't relax enough
Yeah.
to just enjoy being in
But you have
the.
a panic attack when you get out of the shower or something, you know?
Exactly, yeah, yeah. Oh, and I mean, a lot of my, from my personal trauma responses, trauma reactions, um, is I I take on almost a Napoleonic, um, attempt at getting over them. So if something is making a situation makes me nervous, a situation makes me feel a certain way, and I get really anxious,
You
rather
attack
than
it.
walk away, then oh, I'm going to hide from this, I'm going to go back to some place that's safe. I go right into it. Um,
Absolutely.
I started free climbing because I was afraid of heights, and that was terrifying. That was absolutely terrifying. I'm still afraid. I still get anxious in enclosed spaces, but I'm not about to become a spelunker. I'm not going to go in a cave. I'm
No,
sorry. That's the one.
that's,
It's a healthy fear to have.
I agree. I agree, definitely. And that's one of those things where it's like, what is the reward?
Yeah,
Honestly.
yeah. What
Like, oh, we
what
made it. Like, great. Uh,
what did
um,
you do?
so I actually want to kind of take a turn on you now.
Okay.
So you had already kind of talked about phones and stuff like that. So let's dive into that a little more. How
Okay.
is it teaching, or how was it teaching during the pandemic? What was that like?
That was probably the darkest year of my life. That, you're You're talking to a teacher that thrives off of the human interaction with their students.
Right.
And not in a sense that I'm with my peer group, but I'm lucky enough to have realized pretty early on that this is what I'm wired to do. This is what I'm supposed to do. And so I don't have to find myself. I've found myself. My place to be is in front of a group of students, or with a group of students, or with people that are learning. And to be separated by a screen was it was like explaining to somebody how to rebuild a carburetor, but every third word comes out.
Yeah. I understand, because there's like something so human and vulnerable about being in person. You have to trust somebody. There's like you're not imposing a threat on anybody. They can feel that. But if you're just talking through a screen, there's none of that. There's no, even the body language is very limited unless they're expressive with their eyebrows or something.
It's, it's here. This is what they would see. And so I actually think, from what my students have said, I think I did still manage to make a positive impact, because I realized that I was not going to do any intense learning.
Yeah.
And teaching someone to play
compromised.
I compromised. Our first start of our class was like, "What's bugging you? What's up?" I did hold them accountable. I said, "When you're in my Zoom class, if you are going to be here, I need proof of life, and I need you to chime in. When I have a question, I want you to answer.
Right.
You can't sit and stare at the screen for 40 minutes and consider it credit." So here's my deal with you. I'm going to have one concept every Zoom class. We're not going to start the class off with that concept. We're starting the class off with, how are you feeling? What's going on? Everybody getting enough to eat? Is this good? Let me see your dog. Let me see your cat.
Right.
And just establish a human connection. And then it was just the lesson. I was like, okay, we're going to get into the subject now. And it was, I'm going to teach you a paradiddle. Learn how to play a paradiddle. And then we're going to learn how to write a paradiddle. And then if you understand the concept, you're free to go.
Right.
And I stayed on my contractual 40 minutes. And sometimes I would have a student that would hang on, and they didn't need any help. They just wanted to talk, or they really needed help, and they just were really having trouble getting it. And I set it up so I could do different camera angles and stuff. And I tried to see if, maybe having a better microphone worked. Maybe going through my computer as opposed to going through my phone worked better, or vice versa.
And that's another thing too. The technological problems. I'm sure you ran into those fairly frequently.
I was the tech support for most of our teachers.
That doesn't surprise me.
I go on. I've got to do
my
this.
audio's not working.
Audio.
Like, all you got to do is select the right microphone.
Yeah. And what is kind of telling is a lot of the people that asked me for help ended up solving it themselves when they took 5 minutes to read the instructions.
Absolutely. People don't have patience, though, or problem-solving skills.
Yeah, and their attention is...
And that's, it's kind of segue into the next, question. Teaching, when you started teaching, like the first day, so on and so forth, how was that? And then also, how is that versus now, considering, technology and all of that?
The attention span of the student has gone down.
Absolutely.
I've learned
thank you, TikTok.
Yeah, thank you, TikTok. My pace has changed. I used to pace a lot slower. I would go, okay, concept, probing question.
Have you found it easier to teach at a faster rate? They absorb more?
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of good to some degree.
Well, as another ADD, I can go fast, skip topics, go back to topics. circle around, come back, retreat, charge, and it's just the kids are used to it because they're used to, like, I can pay attention for this long and then you've lost me. So it's like these little vignettes of a lesson that I go bam, 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 bam. And then we're done with the lesson. We got 30 minutes to polish it or to do something or to totally switch gears and do something else. And the students appreciate that. They don't want me just talking for 20 minutes or all right, we're going to play, and we play straight for 35 minutes. They don't have the attention span anymore to do that. And attention span is like anything else. If you don't have a good attention span, you can train yourself up to get a better attention span.
Absolutely.
And span is, your pacing is very slow. You can transition yourself. The trouble is convincing someone to do that.
Right.
to make the thing, I'm going to change. I'm going to alter my attention span. I'm going to not be on my phone because I know it's the right thing to do. And when you were saying before about being able to have a conversation with a teacher, I have conversations with my students. I come across, initially as, this is not a democracy. This is a benevolent dictatorship, and what my way goes, which is what they're used to.
And I've actually heard that said verbatim in class before.
That is exactly right.
The bell doesn't dismiss you, all of that stuff. And it's like, dude, if you walk out of class, who cares?
All the buzzwords you need to say as a teacher, because you've got to say it. It's
so bizarre though, because it's like, don't you notice that these students hate the teachers that act like this? Like, are you not self-aware?
So that having been said, after I say, this is how it is, ultimately there's a retreat on my part.
Sure.
I would much rather have an argument with you than write you up. Any fool can fail you, and I'm not
Absolutely.
a fool. And so then I start asking them questions that I don't let them shrug to.
Right.
And they have to have a conversation. And once we start having that conversation, once that gets started, then if they're upset at me, we can have a conversation about it. If they appreciate something I've done, we can have a conversation about it. If they're unsure about something, they can have a conversation about it. And no topic is off subject in my class. I mean, I've had wonderful classes that had absolutely nothing to do with music.
Absolutely. And I remember one of the times when, because we actually moved from Dominion to Whetstone at the same time. And I remember my freshman year, student asked, and it actually might have been me, I don't remember, but somebody said something about taint or something. And I was like, what is that? And he was like, ask Mr. A. And, I'm daring at the time. So I ask, and you're like, why do you want to, you're kind of, but you're like, well, this is technically what it means, and
I think I remember that conversation. And I said, the medical term for it is the perineum. And
I believe that's exactly what you said. So, okay. 2 more questions. We're getting a little short on time. Okay. Number 1, back to the question, how was it when you started teaching? How did you transfer from being a student to a teacher, and what was that like?
I was lucky enough to have a very old teacher, and he was not the same as his peers. He didn't. He said, "Don't go to the teachers' lounge. The teachers' lounge is where they complain about students. And that's just negative. You don't need that negativity." He says, "Stay in your room and make yourself available to your students to come in." He says, because a band room is a sanctuary, and it's the one place that students feel comfortable enough to be creative, to make a mistake.
And they also use music as a vice oftentimes.
Yeah, it's the one place you can go to, and there's no agenda, really.
Right.
You can hang out, you can play guitar, or I don't want to play guitar, I just want to be by myself. Okay, you can be by yourself. I want to be by myself only with some people. Okay, you can do that too.
Also, usually with the lessons and stuff, it's not like well, if you can't play this by the end of the year, then you fail or something. It's just kind of like just absorb, you know.
Yeah, I see some teachers that have great bands that I wouldn't want to be in their band, regardless of how good they sound at contest, because that teacher has cherry picked that band and has driven the students that are learning or aren't quite that good. He's driven them out.
Right.
That there are students that maybe they're never going to play Carnegie Hall. They're never going to touch their instrument after that class. But for that class, you had the opportunity to do something for that student, even if it's become the third crappiest trumpet player that he's ever seen.
Right.
You had that connection, and maybe politely go, maybe music isn't your thing. Maybe that's okay. Keep doing it though.
Right.
And did you show up to my class? Yes. Did you ask pertinent questions? Did you when you needed to ask a question? Did you try to do everything you could to be better? Congratulations, you attempted mastery of
Life.
element.
Literally life.
Yeah. Like you don't win. It's like, yay, I won at life. No, you're dead. It's a constant. I'm gonna try this. Okay, I suck at this. I'm not gonna do that anymore.
Or
I'm gonna,
maybe, this is something that I still want to do and I got to get better at it, and just
Yeah.
kind of being humble and knowing like, okay, I have a starting point. I am a 1 out of 10. What's the goal, and setting self goals is something that's highly important as well.
Yeah.
So the other question that I had was, and it's still kind of all relevant and tied together, is you are a parent. How's Atticus doing, by the way? Do you have any other kids?
I've got Sarah, my daughter. She was actually
yeah.
she had just graduated when you were in ninth grade, I think.
I believe so.
And she's a teacher.
Okay. So it's
who
in the
has
family.
has a rabid student following.
That's not surprising.
And Atticus is he dabbled with a whole bunch of stuff. He is now the 8th best bowler in his district.
Okay.
He bowled a 285 the other day.
How old is he now?
He's 17.
Okay.
17 going 35.
I'm getting older.
Yeah. He's great. He started, you get to be your sophomore, junior, senior, you start getting autonomous from your parents unless something happens, and then you're like, Mom, Dad.
Yeah.
So he's sure that he's got it figured out and he's ready to go. And
yeah,
like, okay.
I remember that age. 18, you know everything. 20, you don't know nothing.
You're like, oh my goodness.
He's figured out the current. But as soon as everything changes when you graduate, it's like, what do I even do? I don't, but
$35 pair of speakers every week. What do you need?
So with that being said, you're a parent, you're a teacher, you're a musician, and you've done the things like the over the summer band and all of that stuff, which is extremely strenuous. How do you balance all of this stuff? What is it like balancing not only just the actual work ethic to continue to do it, continue to show up, but also the mentality of each thing, and do you approach them differently?
I've got a great wife. I mean, I don't so great. I don't deserve her.
Isn't your wife a teacher as well?
She was a teacher. Yes.
Okay.
She was, now she's administration. So.
Oh, okay. Now she's the boss.
Boss. But she's exactly the same way as me.
All right, we had some technical issues, but we're back. So
I got a wonderful wife. And when I say wonderful wife, I mean I don't deserve her a wonderful wife. I
know the feeling.
Isn't it insane? You find this person, and it took me 2 tries to get this. Find this person, and you go, okay, when am I going to wake up? Because I don't deserve this person.
Absolutely, 100%.
I'm not saying it's all wine and roses all the time, but it's she's incredibly supportive, and even more so. I think almost besides being supportive, she checks me when I'm overextending myself.
It's funny you say that because to a lot of people, this stuff sounds cliche. And a lot of people have trouble in relationships. But when you find that person, not that everybody wants to work a charity case or nothing, but man, it changes your life because it's the balance you need. And it's, when I was younger, I was more aggressive. I was more, men don't cry. And then like 10 years later, I'm like, why would anybody ever say that? You know what I mean? And it's like that is all possible because of the nurturing energy that I got from her. And, it absolutely 100%. It sounds exaggerated.
So another one of my star pupils here that, school ended an hour and 12 minutes ago.
So that's cool. It couldn't be me. I was out of there. But it does sound cliche and it sounds exaggerated, but it truly is real. I mean, it's
Absolutely.
some people do not understand until you get there, and I hope you find it if you don't have it.
Yeah. And what's amazing is we don't realize what we needed until it's there. And some people don't get that. They never get that.
And
but
they never grow.
Realize this is what I needed.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't need somebody to just blank check everything every crazy idea I had in my head. I needed somebody that goes, I'm with you. Whoa.
Yeah. Hold on now. Well, and what's crazy about that too is it's a checks and balance, but it's like moments of epiphany. You'll just wake up one day, sit down on the toilet to use the bathroom in the morning, and you're like, wow, like I'm really lucky. You know what I mean? It's not like a all the time feeling. There are times you take it for granted and everything, but it's like sometimes you just sit back and you go, holy, I'm very, very lucky.
Yeah. I look from the timeline of my life from before. I divided into BJ and AJ. So after Julia and before Julia. Nobody ever met me that I hang out with. And I mean, except some old friends. They don't know me. No one now really that I'm talking with knows me prior to meeting Julia. They didn't know how off I was.
Right.
I
completely understand.
Just that vacant, worthless feeling.
Yeah.
And I feel respected. I feel loved. I feel supported. She understands. Some days I come home and okay, I don't need to talk to you. I need you to just go down to the basement and play your drums or
it completely just coexist together. You don't have to be super attentive to each other. And it's interesting too is that you were saying like how off you were. It's like now there's kind of like even to me, just having conversations with people and trying to articulate things and just talk about traumas and all of this stuff. This all takes maturing and humbling. And it's like, oh man, Josh seems like he's got his head on his shoulders. It's like, you don't understand. I'm one card away from not being that person. And that card oftentimes is, my girlfriend, so we've actually been together since Whetstone. So it's pretty cool. It's been a long time. I don't want to say the wrong years.
Oh yeah.
12 years now. 12 years.
Okay, good save.
I'll just cut that out.
put it on phone.
Well, we started dating in 2010, so it's December 2010. So until December, it's 12, and then in December it's 13. So,
God, cool. Yeah, my wife and I will celebrate 25 years in May.
That's 3 years younger than I am. So, but back to the question, so, you have obviously, admiration and appreciation for your marriage and stuff like that. But how do you approach those things differently than the other things that you do in your life, band, teaching, so on and so forth? And also, how did you originally approach them? Has it changed?
Yeah, I used to approach um, the actual class as kind of like, hey, this is my job. You know, I got to do my job. This is when I was teaching elementary.
Okay.
Um, it almost ended me my first year. I was halfway through the year. I did the concert, and I was like, oh my gosh, this sounded horrible. This is
Elementary concerts sound awful.
elementary violin concert. I'm not even a violin player, and I was teaching violin. And I'd substitute taught before that. And substitute teaching is like being a mercenary. They drop you in enemy territory. You just got to make it through,
I
and then
agree.
exfil, and you're okay.
Quick shout out. One of the best substitute teachers we ever had. His name was Mr. Babai, I think. Do you remember him?
I remember him.
He got bullied so much, and he was such a humble guy. I hope he's doing good in life. I really do.
Yeah, I
He
remember.
was such a humble guy
And but students were pretty ruthless to him.
because he wasn't ever mean to him. You would never catch him like, hey, it's just never. He was just like, all right,
He was unflappable.
and I hope that those things never impacted his life outside of school, even though clearly they would. But I hope he's doing good, man.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like I was saying, I tried that first year. I tried to treat it just like a job.
Mm-hmm.
You have no business teaching if you think of it just as a job. And so when I stopped doing that, when I stopped thinking of it like, all right, I've got to, I'm contractually obligated and my union says that I can do this. When I stopped doing that, I actually started having fun. And here recently, like the past, there's been, don't get me wrong, there's been COVID, there's been other issues that have come up in my life and in my schools. And, teaching at a school where 12 of your students have been murdered throughout the course of the year, that takes a toll on you.
Absolutely. And
And
scares you to some degree.
Yeah. Teaching in a neighborhood where my principal says, drive home immediately. Do not stop for any stoplights. Do not stop for anybody in the street. He said, you are a target in this neighborhood. And I was like, oh, okay. Where I had to wear I didn't have to. Well, in order to function, I had to wear a bulletproof vest at one of my schools. That was the school
Was that early on or late, like around this time?
8 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's
sad that it's like that too.
Yeah, it killed me that I had to leave that school, but I couldn't be an effective teacher.
Scared.
I couldn't.
And that's the thing too, is, now you start looking, if a student gets frustrated, you're like, he might shoot me, and that's, I mean, seriously, that is terrible. It's so sad that it's like that.
Be aware of that could happen.
But, okay, so, I had a good one for you. Oh, yeah. Okay, so you've kind of, I don't want to say bend the rules or anything like that, but you start getting comfortable. You've been teaching long enough to where it's kind of like, well, you're not going to really be able to tell me how to do my job better than I know how to do my job at this point. Have you ever been on the hot seat for your methods of teaching?
My language, I definitely have. And the reason that I was on the hot seat is there is a certain acceptable language in a school, and a lot of other teachers are much better at it than I am.
I'm hoping that this was not the school where students were dying.
No, this was not.
I was just gonna say, one thing is probably.
No, this was actually when I was teaching at Dominion.
Okay, and that's middle school, so respectfully.
It's middle school, and I was a little overly abrasive.
Okay.
It was students that were, I can't even remember why it was up, and I let slip a word that you don't hear in middle school halls a lot. And Miss Flanagan said, "Hey, I had a report from a parent that this is what was said." And I said, "That was not what was said, but that word was included." And
of
she's
course,
like,
you got to fabricate a little bit, make it a little worse,
Well, it was, yeah, you can't just say I heard this in school. Yeah, you've heard that 500 times.
So with that situation, are you glad that it wasn't popular at the time to record teachers and put videos of these situations on the internet so they could become viral and blow up beyond what it actually is? Because you see that the student already exaggerated. So now it's like, well, that's not what was said. And you're trying to defend yourself. And the internet's like, fire him. He's terrible. Sue the school or whatever.
Yeah. I am very aware just from past life situations. I'm always really aware of where I'm going verbally, mentally, and I'm a planner, which is like it's like a squirrel cage in my head. I'm like, if this, if then, if this, then, if this, then. So it's like student comes in swinging. This is how I'm going to react.
Absolutely.
Student comes in smelling like they just got a Bob Marley's tour bus. This is how I'm going to react.
Right.
And so it's not like I'm not. It's not to sound like, again, not to engage in needless hubris, but I've thought out a lot of situations. It's pretty rare I get caught flat-footed.
Yeah. I'm the same way. Like I said, we shared that trauma response.
Yeah.
You don't ever want to not be ready.
Oh yeah. You're ready for you're the guy at the day hike with the full backpack.
Absolutely.
What?
It's like, well, if I get lost.
Yeah.
It's like, and well, it's you're like probably the odds are is like, nope, don't care.
No, yeah, that's fine. I'd rather be the one that's carrying this and ends up being right, and then carrying this and ends up being, doesn't carry this and ends up being really wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
So, we'll end this one with a question that you may or may not be able to answer given your circumstances of current employment. What is the craziest thing that you have experienced as a teacher? The absolute, if you had to pick one.
Okay. Craziest. Okay. Well, you mean besides picking up a bottle of apple juice on the bottom of the bus that had rolled down the aisle and realizing it was warm, and then bringing it back to the student and asking them if they'd like to drink said apple.
I wonder who would have done something like that.
I don't know. Okay.
That's actually hilarious that you said that, because that I did pee in the bottle. It was intended to be thrown away. I was completely covered. Had blankets and stuff.
I believe riot act.
At the time, me and Gabe were not that close. We got close in high school. He was looking at me like, this dude is a nut job. Like, shout out to Gabe. Hopefully I'm gonna send this to him, at least this clip. Yeah, that was one of those situations where it's like, oh, haha, he peed in the jug, and then I can't remember if someone grabbed it or something and they threw it or something stupid. Like, literally, I didn't do that. And I'm like, how did this end up escalating to the point where the teacher has it? I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to get sent home. I'm going to die when I get home.
We were on our way back, I think. And
were we?
I got it. I mean, I told you about my past trauma and me about using the bathroom. I was
Hey,
like,
I lucked out there. That worked out great for me.
That was because everybody got all kinds of grief if they went to the bathroom there.
Yeah.
It didn't matter what you did. It was like, oh, using the bathroom. And but that wasn't the craziest. And that was actually, I remember that. And I actually tell that story to my students to this day.
I did not even remember that, honestly. That time period was like Jackass. Every single thing was just like, oh my God, how did it escalate here?
Yeah. The craziest thing, absolute hands down craziest thing that ever happened. I'm at a school. I can't say which state I'm in, which city I'm in.
Okay.
People could probably infer this, but I'm taking it to my grave. I'm at a school, and I have a tendency to be the one. They always tell teachers, don't get involved in fights. Don't get involved in fights. They're specifically talking to me. They're saying, Mr. Aldridge, please stop getting involved in fights. I don't want a student going down the path that I experienced in high school. And
Right.
so I immediately break up a fight. And I don't care if it's 5 guys, 2 girls, 6 guys.
Don't you have a background in Taekwondo or something as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I'm relatively safe.
Yeah, these kids are not going to hurt you unless they have a weapon, and even then,
yeah. Only time I've ever been hurt is breaking up a fight between 2 ladies. That's the only time I got
scratch.
I got clocked in the eye, and that was
Oh,
also
okay.
opinion.
But at the
So,
same time, you're not going to press charges on these kids or nothing
No!
like that. So
You're-
but the schools now, especially now, they can be sued for this.
yeah. I'm not gonna do something I'm gonna lose my license over.
Right.
But I will break up a fight. And so there was this kind of I can tell when I walk into like a room where there's a lot of students, I can feel the vibe in the air.
Mhm.
It's like someone's gonna get in a fight, or there's something is off.
They
And
just keep looking at this one student over and over.
it's like they start, sequestering up into these little tribes, and
Mhm.
it was this
We have the world of knowledge at our fingertips, but nobody knows anything. So
yeah.
it's
Video real quick.
yeah. Let me see how to start. Hold on, I gotta the intro. Hey guys, welcome to EMT World.
First, let's have a word from our sponsor.
Right. Well, I appreciate you, coming by, talking. I plan
Absolutely.
on doing a few more of these. I don't know if you're still in touch with any of those former teachers or anything, but after this goes live, if one of them happens to contact you or something, or
Okay.
myself, I'm willing to do more podcasts.
Cool.
I hope to have Mr. Lisi on. I know you guys are extremely busy, so I'm always very lenient with this stuff.
Lisi would be a great guy to have on. Let me think. Miss Murphy.
That's actually a good one too. Her and my sister were really close.
Yeah, Miss Murphy she has a very unique to her teaching style.
I only had like one interaction with her. I went to her class because I got sent there from another class, and I drew a rocket ship on the board, and she was like, "Get out of my class." But other than that, I've always heard great things about her.
Yeah, and she's always willing to talk. We got the gift of watching her daughter over one summer when my wife had she had quit her job. She was kind of in the middle of doing stuff. She'd been working at a daycare, and it just was not feeding her intellectually. And she said, "Well, I can run a daycare." So we had a daycare that ran for a summer out of our house, and she had a great plan. And we got to have Laurel, Ms. Murphy's daughter, with us, and it was really cool seeing a fellow teacher in the wild.
Right.
It's a lot of times teachers are exactly like they are when they're teaching, but more often than not, they're totally different.
That's kind of why I was asking, like, how do you approach them? Do you go home and like, all right, strict, wake up at this time, and then go to school like, let's compromise?
No, I'm Atticus and I have conversations.
Yeah.
And we have conversations until I need to go, no, that's not going to happen. And I just get the dad voice and I say, okay, no, we've had this conversation.
Right.
You might. And then when it gets quiet, he knows when I'm kind of shouting, I'm just kind of venting.
Yeah.
But when I say, have a seat.
Yeah, you're not getting me to bend on this. This is no longer frustration, or this is like, this is what it is. There is no compromise.
Yeah, this is how it's going.
I also have an issue with myself where I have a tendency to try to articulate something in every possible way until I feel like finally I get it across. And I walk away from a lot of conversations unsatisfied. Like, oh man, I could have said this. but yeah, so I'll definitely have to reach out to Miss Murphy. That would be an interesting one. But yeah, this was awesome. I've done podcasts with some, friends from school and stuff like that. I
Mm.
want to reach out to more people and stuff. Just slowly push the boundaries and everything. But either way, I definitely appreciate you. You've been a good guest.
Very cool. Yeah, reach out to Gabe. He's always
Yeah,
he's.
that would be. I have not talked to him since high school, so it would be really interesting.
I kind of I never really stopped being a teacher, even when you guys are out of school. I still like want to throw props at you when something happens or you're having a rough day. And I know social media doesn't necessarily always give what people need, and a lot of times people aren't on the same platform as me. But there's been a couple times when I could tell that was Gabe's way of saying I'm at a low place,
Yeah, absolutely.
and I just reaching out to him and going, hey, you know what? Did it kill you? It didn't, and you're going to be stronger because of it.
Yeah.
And you just gotta, and Gabe responds well to kind of knocking him around a little bit. All right, you got to nut up, buddy. Come on, let's do this.
You're right. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, okay, right, yeah. And you
Yeah.
see him get all, and then and then he's good to go.
Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely got to reach out to him.
Cool.
That would be pretty awesome. But yeah, I mean, I definitely have a lot more teaching questions, so I'll have to reach out to me and you is kind of more of a personal thing. Like I said, I just really wanted to let you know that you've definitely impacted my life, and I'm sure that other students who maybe they don't even know you've impacted their life yet, or maybe they just aren't people that are like, oh, thank you, but thank you for being the person that you were to me. That's something that's near and dear.
I really appreciate that. That will keep me going for another 20 years. So
that's good. I'm glad to hear that. I think about depression and stuff sometimes, and I'm like, I hope if that person is ever down, they think about the impact that they've had,
Yeah.
Because it's like, man, you guys, this person's so sad, but it's like, if only you understood the impact that you've had is so much more beyond, the self-doubt or whatever you're feeling, you know what I mean? But yeah, that was a big reason why I reached out to you, is I just wanted to, say thank you and obviously get some. And your crazy story, that I wasn't expecting that, to be honest. So if you're becoming a teacher, pick up a bulletproof vest. No, but yeah, yeah, definitely expect that's anything. But so thank you guys. Definitely check out any of my other videos. I got a podcast playlist. This one will be on that.
I subscribed.
I've seen that. Thank you for the subscription. And also to anybody who's here from, not seeing any other videos, it's your first video, make sure you subscribe. That's greatly appreciated. And also, if you want to do a podcast or something, comment down below. I'll reach out to you. We'll get it together. But thank you guys for coming. And what? like as well. But thank you guys for coming to Red's World. Stay tuned for more to come soon. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.